This episode is mom guilt. Guilt for wanting things from orgasm to rest. And content warning here, same for all of our episodes. Just some explicit adult topics. So if you are watching this, listening to this with someone who's a bit more sensitive or younger, or maybe your father-in-law, I don't know why you're listening to it with your father-in-law, but just in case, probably time to turn it off before we jump in. And start off with our first question. Kay, when was the last time you felt guilty for just doing something you wanted to do?
I was thinking about this, and I think that my answer is going to sound funny because it's not necessarily that I wanted to do it. But I think that when it comes to prioritizing my career meetings over my partner's meetings, I end up prioritizing his, even though it would be much easier for me to make sure that I make it to mine, and it would prevent emails from being sent and from me looking like I'm the one who has kids and has a more clustered life. And that's more, kind of related to being a working mom and making sure that you're being there for your work, your kids, and it's when kids are unexpectedly home. But I think that those are like my main times when I'm feeling guilt over that I'm just not doing it right.
I think you as a person, something I really respect about you and your partner is that you both do a really good job about giving each other time, and that's something that's hard to do when you both have kids. So you are both a really good example of it. I definitely feel the career guilt too. I feel all the guilt. The career guilt, in our case, there's a big discrepancy between how much we make. And a thing that I'm quick to overlook is how much, but partially the difference in how much we make in our lines of work is because society is kind of fucked up. And, it's just like the things that capitalist society values aren't necessarily the most valuable things. Like my sister's a teacher and her husband is an engineer and he makes a lot more than her. And I mean, she's like teaching the future engineers of America because she's a math teacher. So, I try not to do that thing too much of actually taking the cash value of your job and equating that with how much it's worth, in a bigger sense of the term. And I think we're going to get more into that kind of question about worth later on. So, I mean, that's one thing. And I think sometimes it's really easy for me to forget how much I made choices sensitive to the fact that I would have to always be planning my life around a family and kids. And that was kind of one of the semi-useful things that Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book got into, is that, women opting out earlier. I'm not necessarily mad about it because I don't think that I'm wishing that I had the capability to work some 80-hour-a-week, job that's your whole life, and I've somehow missed out by not having that. But yeah, I think I was always making decisions based on having a career that would be flexible. And then once having kids, being the one who is always kind of opting out of things. So yeah, of course, my job has kind of been secondary.
Well, and when I think about myself even starting in high school, and in high school, I had a strong GPA, strong test scores. I could have done many different things, but my mind was always on, well, what do I want after college? And to me, it was actually very revolutionary that I wanted to be a working mom, but I wanted to do it in a way that I could always be there for my kids and have more flexible hours. So I actually went into nursing with the idea that then I could, when I had kids, still work, even though it was just 1 to 2 shifts on weekends, and be there during the weekdays with them. And from the get-go, it was always like that. And I even remember in college, my advisor meeting with me and saying, okay, well, what are your plans for education after your degree? And I was like, having kids and getting married. And that is the whole reason for this degree. And that's not the direction it ended up going in. I think I naturally wanted to look at things at a systems level. And so I went back to school. But it's interesting how kind of from the get-go, what women are told about their expectations after they graduate college and what it might look like in their 20s and what they see their moms doing it all drives into that a lower earning career path, and it kind of all feeds into each other with this cycle.
Yeah, and what man has been asked at age 18, how are you going to try to have it all? Yeah.
And if they were asked that, it would probably be something more like my responsibility is to make as much, to be the breadwinner and to make as much money for my family. And that's how I would be a great man in society, is to be able to be that. And so it's like we're all like led into things from a very early direction.
Yeah, I think did I mention Ali Wong's bit previously?
I love Ali Wong.
Oh, so one of my favorite things that she said is when she says, "I want a wife." She's like, "Imagine how successful I could be if I had a wife." Like, I want everyone to have a wife. And that's how I feel sometimes. And not that I begrudge my husband his success at all, but I just think, I want a wife. Imagine what I could have done if I had a wife. And so I think that's something
you wouldn't have to think about summer camp registrations.
I know, exactly. And it just like, things would come together for me, and I wouldn't be so scattered. I don't think I'm already scatterbrained, but I wouldn't be so scatterbrained at work. I feel like I am. Maybe we all do.
I've gotten very comfortable telling different groups, like, oh, I'm late because of my kids, or I can't meet after 4 p.m. because I want to be there for kids' pickups. And while they're all accepting that's fine, I don't know how that's impacted my opportunities down the line, or things that I wasn't invited to because I was known as someone who didn't like evening things. And, when I do travel for work, I'm in and out that day. I'm not going to the group dinner that's happening later on that I can miss. But on the Ali Wong thing, I have the flip side of that, of a comedian who I saw in New York City, and he was saying that his girlfriend of 2 years or so broke up with him, and she's like, I need a man to be my boyfriend, like I need a real guy here. And he's like, tell me about this. And
tell me about these real men.
Well, you have health insurance that if we got married could cover me. You'd have a car. You'd be able to have the down payment to get a house. These are the things that I'm expecting, that I'm looking for. And he's like, shoot, I need health insurance too. Like, find me this man. I will be there. Like, I totally get it. You definitely should break up with me if you think that that's there for you. And I too, you might see me later on with Jacob or someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Both
like that
ends.
one too. Both ends, yeah. It's just hard to be an adult these days. And even we were thinking, you were saying about, feeling bad missing work, or how that impacts you, that you have had to leave things early or say no to after work events. I have had friends who don't have kids say that they are frustrated that there's just sort of this free pass that parents get that's like, oh, I can't do this weekend thing because obviously got the kids. And one of my coworkers was like, well, like, I want to run a marathon next month. Like, why can't I not come to the thing on Saturday? Because I have to run.
That's my priority right now.
I think my takeaway and this is why, as much as I was in a job where I did legitimately have to stop the job that I was doing and move into something different but related, because the travel associated with my job was just not is doable, and I saw women doing it, and I just thought, I don't like this enough to want to do that and miss out on things from my kids. So I did take a step aside, not a step back, but I took a different route, and I don't really regret it, because I think I was getting kind of burned out doing the thing that I was doing anyway. So it gave me a new angle and something exciting, and I started my own business. But yeah, I feel like generally my takeaway from these things is I never get to the end of it and think, I wish that I worked more. So it's like, it's this guilt.
Isn't that the tricky part? It's like half of me is like, man, I wish that I really continued to take the time to prioritize work, because in my work there's a very clear way that, the more grants, the more papers I get, the more esteemed I'll be, the other opportunities I'll have. And then part of me is like, oh, well, I don't want to work at all and be fully for my kids and travel, and, Danny, get on that so I can have my stay-at-home dream life for myself.
Yeah, this is something I've reflected on a lot, because I'm currently on a break from work due to gestures wildly at everything that's happening. And yeah, that. So it's something that I'm kind of grappling with, because I don't miss working right now. I might in another couple of months. And I don't wish that I had my husband's role of being like currently the sole earner in the family, but there's something that I'm jealous about, and it's like that sense of importance that work gives you of kind of, like you even see little kids doing that of they're like, oh, I'm very busy right now, I have to go do work because they hear their parents saying it. But yeah, just this sort of sense of significance and importance, and the sense that you get to claim the first dibs on that time off and that recreational time. It's really hard for me now, so getting into another kind of guilt to take recreational time. Like if it's a weekend and my husband's like, oh, okay, can I take Saturday morning to do this? I'm like, oh, yes, absolutely. Like take a break. I have a really hard time asking for time for myself on the weekend because I'm like, well, now I can kind of have time for myself during the week, and my time just seems worth less, which is a hard thing to grapple with, especially because, it's just getting back into this capitalist thing of what you assign value to.
That, and so I read something that I don't know if I fully agreed with how it was said, but this kind of dichotomy of who women want to be, and it's, do you want to be the girl boss who totally puts your career first and husband and kids kind of come second, or do you want to be the trad wife who's fully there for the kids, your main role is mothering? And the person commenting on it said, well, really, both women want the same thing, and they're kind of in the same box, and both women want to do half the work, which I don't enjoy. I don't agree with that wording, but there's something there that the normal work is almost double the work, where we are, whether we're working or not, still doing a disproportionate amount for our kids. If you look at any birthday invitation that you've ever received for a kid, it was most likely designed and made for the mom, who also was the one who did the dessert order and everything like that. I'm not going to say the meal order because your partner might have done that for your kid's birthday
or
party.
Made the food himself.
Yeah. Or actually made the dessert. But either way, you're doing so much that it's just overwhelming, and that's why it becomes unsustainable to imagine doing all of one or all the other. But the other problem, and that is like exactly kind of what you touched on, though, is this issue of like when you lose your feeling of financial independence, for lack of a better word, that like when you have your own amount, then, or like you're contributing your amount, then when you want to do something like go on a trip with girlfriends, there's no question that you deserve the time and that how much money goes into it is yours to spend and all those things. I think that that's kind of where it gets complicated.
Yeah. And my sister's also kind of in a similar situation of changing things from around at work, and is just working part-time right now. And we talked about doing some things, and it's always just this kind of guilt of, she's like, well, I can't spend money on just myself for anything because I'm not the one bringing in that much money. And I think it's interesting to read feminist economics in this, because one of the big contributions there is thinking about how we value different things. And in traditional economics, it's just very dollar sign. Like if you earn $100,000 a year, your labor is worth $100,000. And so if you are a stay-at-home mom and you earn $0, then your labor is worth $0 in traditional economics. And I think there have been a lot of feminist economists who have kind of challenged that and all that invisible labor. And there's something wrong with the math is not mathing. If that's all, is that like how much is the paycheck say that it's worth, and presents the same problem as like, why is a teacher worth less than like a tech CEO or something? Like I want 0 Elon Musks in my future and millions of overpaid teachers. Like, why is the world set up the way that it is set up?
And I think that this plays into the Christian culture that so many of us were raised in, and particularly SJ and Emmy were raised in, and the Proverbs 31 wife and the ideal homemaker. And I know that you are the expert on the Proverbs 31 wife, though you yourself, as your partner would say, are not a good Proverbs 31 wife. I guess not.
It depends how you read the text. If you read the text how it was read to me growing up, and I think if this phrase feels common to you, you were probably brought up in an evangelical or evangelical-informed Christian tradition. And obviously there are so many kinds of conservative Christians beyond the evangelicals, and Kay, for you, I think that's the Catholicism has different ways of making women feel inferior. But this is a specific one. If you want a good time, you can go and read about it. You can go read the actual chapter. So it's kind of just this, it's usually read to you as like, this is the virtuous woman. And it describes this upper class Jewish woman in the era in which it was, and just like all these things that she does during the day. She runs the household, she sews, she cooks, she takes care of the whole family. She's just like got all these plates that she's balancing, and just this description of a fabulous woman. And so in a lot of evangelical contexts, this was a more specifically named way to talk about the thing that I think is pervasive through all of conservative Christianity, which is, she has to do it all. Like what you were just saying about somebody who's like, oh, well, this is this cop-out if you're the girl boss mom, or the trad wife mom is you're giving up half of it. And I think the Proverbs 31 woman, as she's presented to conservative Christian culture, is very like, she does it all and looks fabulous doing it, is kind of how it's presented to you. And so if you're not aware, you would go to like Proverbs 31 women like seminars, or there'd be like diaries, books that you could read to strive to become or to raise your daughters to be this Proverbs 31 woman. So not everyone uses that phrase, but I don't know, Kay, you could talk about from Catholic perspective where that phrase probably wasn't used, that you still get a lot of that energy coming off of it.
I think just the way that I was raised, my mom literally always made the dinner. She was always the one to set it out. She was always the one to do the laundry. There was never any question. When my dad did it, it was like, ooh, this is a big day, or it's because my mom was really feeling some way, or she was never in a bad mood about it. That's not what I'm saying. She was sick or something like that.
And this is where you get, especially our mom's generation, that's like, that. Not that my mom says this, bless her, but the thing where your husband is taking the kids for the day and they go, oh, he's babysitting. Oh. What a swell guy.
One time I was playing with one kid and the other kid needed their diaper changed, and I was just, not that it wasn't 100% his role, but I looked and was like, hey, can you change so-and-so's diaper? And my partner went and did it. And my mom looked at me and was like, wow, my daughters are so comfortable asking their husbands to do stuff. And I was like, do you mean change his child's diaper while I am playing with the other child? And he was sitting there on his phone. Like, it's not
gender equality in a poopy diaper.
Yeah, this wasn't me, being bossy and sitting up there on my throne while like painting my nails. And if I were, that would also be completely okay. But that's how I was raised, where it was like, oh, of course the mom is going to do that. And it was kind of noticed the few houses in the neighborhood where there was a more equal relationship. And it wasn't exactly a smiled upon thing that in that case the mom had established some equality where the dad was doing more. It was, oh wow, that husband is so great. I feel so bad at the way that the mom. Or
even like he's pussy whipped. I mean, our moms didn't say pussy. Whatever our mom said, that was the equivalent of it. That
Your mom
was like,
didn't say that? Yeah.
I wish. I would have respected it more if she had just come out and said that. Again, I don't know how much my mom. I feel like my mom would have kind of been in shock and awe about this, and would have actually been kind of positive. I think my mom doesn't know it, but she's like secretly a feminist and like kind of ahead of her time, but would never use that term because it's very, dirty in kind of the circles that we come from.
So, SJ, I know that you told me that you did not expect sex to come into this episode, but you know that I can't help myself. And
I think that it should, because there's guilt there too.
So I looked into this, and I always like to see if there's studies proving what I anecdotally see. And there was a study by Dr. Gurwitz-Madan, who does research at a sex lab, and I was so happy to hear about her sex lab.
What a sex lab is.
She looks very cool, and I'm very jealous of her job because all of the studies, I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. I could dig into this for hours. So it looked at people in relationships for at least a year, and had about 45% men, 55% women respond and report on whether they were trad supporters, so traditional gender norms, all that, or not, and their sexual desire, sexual frequency. And this will not surprise you, but I was so happy to see it backed up in the data. But people who were trad supporters had less sex, reported less sexual desire overall, and had less sexual desire and satisfaction with their partners. And this was whether or not you were a trad supporter, so it was kind of alarming. But for women, a big predictor of their frequency of their sex was their reported desire of their partner's desire to have sex with them versus like their own desire. And that was even stronger for trad supporters.
Okay.
But kind of depressing.
That is. Yeah.
Well, not
like
surprising.
So many things. Yeah. I'm depressed but not surprised. I'm going through life depressed but not surprised. Yeah. So one of the things that comes to mind immediately that could be behind this is what we were talking about previously in a previous episode about this idea that you are pure and you never have a sexual thought, you don't explore or learn it all until the day of your marriage, and then suddenly of course you don't just like flip a switch. I think there's so much guilt for women who were really bought into or raised heavily in that Christian purity culture. You can't just like dismiss it. And so many women talking about how sex makes them feel dirty, even once they're married, and doing it in kind of an acceptable context.
And I was thinking about a bit about what we talked about on the last 2 episodes, where even though you're trained in a way, and trained for the lack of a better word, you're not trained, but it's kind of built into you, like, the man's the one who wants the sex, the man's desires are more important, and all that, the man's like these sexual creatures, whereas like the women are there to fulfill their sex needs. That when maybe it could be the case that in trad relationships, because you're focused on the man, you're not realizing that when you're also focused on the woman, the woman's sexual desires, all that, your sex just isn't as great, and you're not interested in it. Even the man's not as interested in it as a woman, because
just doing it out of a sense of obligation.
Yes, because they don't realize that if they actually took the time, if they did some core play, like Ian Kearney wants us to do with our wine, then they'd be having a better time. But that's my anecdote.
And, so you hear so much about the purpose of sex is for procreation, coming from the conservative Christians.
That's why I've only had sex twice.
Yes. Same with my husband's parents. He said that can only be possible because he can't fathom otherwise. I don't know otherwise. But yeah, I think that it is.
Have it like exactly once a week on a certain day at a certain time. It's probably in a calendar.
Probably. I won't go into that.
Start missionary.
Might have to edit that out. But yeah, so when sex is just for procreation, and that allows you to be judgmental of people who are sluts, this allows you to be judgmental of, LGBT, anything outside of just like very vanilla hetero. But it also kind of deadens any kind of interestingness about your relationship, because you've created such this narrow thing. And if sex is only for procreation, then why are you doing? I mean, then you should be a pure Catholic with like no contraception. You should only be having it, when I promised I wasn't going to talk about Handmaid's Tale in the context of a fun, sexy podcast, but like, you be like the handmaids and just like on the day of your maximum fertility, just go have
remain in a full dress.
Yeah, just hike up your bloomers and have a little like impregnating ceremony. But I know that y'all don't think that, so why can't we talk about the fact that we know that sex is not just for procreation?
Yeah, the poor people in their traddy relationships. So again, I'm not trying to.
No, sorry, trads. We're not trying to shit all over your lifestyle. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure Mike Johnson is really enjoying his trad sex.
Oh my gosh, that's someone who I do feel I can diss, but I won't. And if you didn't grow up with the Bible in your house, you have seen this play out in pop culture everywhere. And I was even thinking about, like, in White Lotus. Did you watch White Lotus?
Yes.
So
am I American or with a TV, or am I not?
So season 1 where they have the the woman character who's a tech exec.
Uh-huh.
Like the
Oh, yeah,
mom.
Connie Britton's
Yes,
character.
Connie
I never know
Britton.
their characters' names. I just know the actors, yes.
So Connie Britton's character, if you watch it, even though she is clearly like the breadwinner and the earner of their household, she's constantly like folding laundry in every
Yes.
single scene.
That bothers me.
Yes, and
I
it was
saw it, and it bothered
definitely
me.
intentional. And
Yes.
I'm so curious to know whether they like had scripted that in, or whether Connie Britton was just naturally folding clothes or doing something. They decided to start including
Or
it
just
and
made
making
that
it a
part of her
thing.
character because, like, of course it would be. I do know people like that, and I think that there was data about that, and I don't have the exact numbers. Maybe we can go back and edit this in.
But no, I've seen. I feel like I know the study that you're talking about, where even if the woman earned more,
Yes.
she still did more of the housework than the husband.
Exactly. Yeah. Even if they're 50-50, she does more, which I think we all know. But yeah, even if she earns more than the husband, then she still does more. So, yeah, that kind of guilt about, just not being able to walk away from things.
Yeah, we also saw it in the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You saw that?
Yeah. That was a good one. My favorite part in that is, of course, in the first season when she's still trying to be the trad wife that her mom raised her to be. I just die about the part that she gets up at 5 a.m. and has a secret alarm set so that she can put her face on and then hop back into bed and just look like she woke up that way. But that is the realest thing I ever saw, because every other TV show just has these women who wake up with like full makeup on. I just have so many comments about, I know there's a whole thing on the internet too where they make jokes about those dystopian kind of future films, or zombie apocalypse films, and it's like, I'm the female character in this zombie apocalypse film. I somehow have access to a razor to shave my armpits, and I do my eyeliner every morning, but I have like a short haircut because it's the future. That I somehow keep up with my immaculate pixie haircut.
What was I going to say? For Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I recommended it to my mom, and she overall really liked it, but she could not get over that she left her kids for her career, and that she left them for such long periods. She was like, how am I supposed to like a character who does that?
Yeah, I see that a lot. I have a close friend who is not with her father of her daughter, and she has a career where she is away a lot and travels and lives close by to them, but not in the same city. And so she gets questions about that all the time, about like, how were you able to make that decision? She'll be chatting with people at work and they're like, oh my gosh, you leave your daughter behind. And then the same thing as the babysitting. They're like, who is she with? And she's like, her dad. She's with her dad and her dad's wife. And they're like, oh, that must be so hard for you sometimes. Or, oh, he is such a great guy to do that. And I mean, he's great. And, we just talk about the fact that I don't think anybody would say anything if the gender roles were reversed and he had a job where he traveled all the time and the child lived primarily with the mom. I think that people might not even know that he has a kid and would be like, yeah, of course, like, you got to do what you got to do for your job. And if you're not married, then, like, the kid has to live with somebody.
That's a hometown friend of mine married a guy, his second marriage, and his wife went to California to to take up her acting career, which was always her dream and she could never do because of the husband's career. And now, like, my hometown friend has really started raising those two kids essentially. But it's interesting because, and this is from the outside watching as a friend, but it feels like now she's become the very, very full time and having more of like almost a single parent look toward these two kids. And some small part of me is like, maybe the reason why the other one left and really felt this urge to take some time and prioritize herself was from these types of things. And that's what I think of, even though Joel's great in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, even though he cheated for a year with, Pam.
Shit happens.
So I actually realized that recently I feel like I've had a very healthy relationship with guilt, in that I've found ways to minimize it and put myself first, particularly, and this is something that we do together, but taking time to work out, taking time to make sure that I'm getting what I want in bed first, all that. And all of these things have had like a super positive impact on how I am as a mom, a partner, just a person in the community. You know, I'm high energy because I took the time to put myself first and work out. I'm having a great time in bed because I took the time to make sure that I was getting what I wanted too. You know, all these different things that I used to feel so much guilt about. And then when I was able to, you know, finally kind of tamper that down a little bit, and in the cases where I am able to tamper it down a little bit, I just feel like it ends up just paying off for everybody, and everybody's having a better time. So.
Yeah, and it feels like a positive cycle for the most part too. I know I used to have such a great relationship with exercise and in college and was an athlete, and then pretty much overdid it, graduated, stopped exercising because that just felt like the greatest treat in the world to not have to be on anybody's schedule and just like eat anything I wanted, not do exercise if I wanted, which I didn't, and kind of did none of that for a while, and then did for a while this kind of like, oh, I'm gonna like work out on my own, like I don't want group classes because I don't want anybody telling me what to do, and I think the pandemic helped snap me. The pandemic and having kids, which is all similar time frame, helped snap me out of that because I was like, I'm never going to be able to work out at home when you have a kid. Going out and working out somewhere else is the highest luxury. Like before kids, you're like, whatever, I have stuff here, I can do it on my own time. After kids, I'm like, this is the greatest thing in the world.
It's such a privilege.
To leave the house, to have somebody else tell me what to do. I went from like after college being like, nobody tells me what to do. If I want to stop running, I'll stop running, to being like, just put on music, tell me when to run, tell me when to pick up the weights, when to put them down.
Yeah, and it's a total luxury. I think that's funny when you said that you stopped working out afterwards. I stopped reading for pleasure for a little bit in my 20s, and I stopped reading because it felt like I already have to read so much for work and for school, and it also kind of felt like reading for pleasure was taking this level of time for myself that I didn't deserve, for lack of a better word. I don't know if deserve is the right word, but it's like, oh, if I am going to read, it's going to be something work related because that's the most productive use of my
like
time.
Maximize it with every moment, and so yeah, or like I feel like I would do things where I'd like work out because I would clock stuff on my Apple Watch, but I would be cleaning the house because I'm like, why would I work out just like running on a treadmill when I could work out by like going up and down the stairs in my row home carrying laundry, and I'd like clock my heart rate and calories on that like it was a workout, but not feel like
not at all as relaxing as a workout.
Workout though. I mean, like as far as like raising your heart rate, sure, but if that is like the only thing that you want out of it, but I think to your point about just like having it be taking time for yourself and finding, I think if people were telling me the positive effects of like, oh, you know, have this for yourself, like get back into this routine, and I was just like, no, that sounds terrible. So you could not have told me that for the world until I got back into it on my own. And my partner had like the similar thing that for the longest time I was like, get back into it, like go to group classes, do something. And he was just like, no, that's not for me. I wouldn't like that until finally I like found him a personal trainer that is like specializes in the specific goals that he has, and like
you did like a Tinder match fit.
Yes, I had found his Tinder match semi-personal trainer, and then I was like, you will have to go because you will have an appointment. And now he's like, I just wish somebody had told me before that like it's just really good to have.
You told us.
I was like, I am 100% sure I told you, but I'm happy because it's like I feel the same thing, and now I have like my whole social group around it, and he has a social group around it, and it's like this self-perpetuating thing, which it just feels really good because it's like you do it and then it feels good, and then you can do more things and you're actually like more happy and productive, and also like want to do those things like working out or having sex more when they're like going well and they are their own reward.
I remember my partner was like, you know, your entire family tells me how much you used to read when you were younger. They tell me all these stories about how when you used to go on, you know, an airplane ride, you'd pack like all of your Harry Potter books into the backpack, even when they were hardcover. And I can't believe knowing that you don't read anymore. And then when I started reading again, it felt like indulging in this guilty pleasure. And now I can't believe that I ever dropped it for so long. But it was just that same thing of like, oh, I don't actually have the time for it. If I do have the time to sit down and read through something, it needs to be for work, or it needs to be doing something.
And you had like the joy kind of taken out of it too, like similar to like me and the working out of like you overdid it and it became for the wrong reasons. I feel like an episode of The Bachelor. You were here for the wrong reasons, Kelly, and you reaped the consequences. But yeah, I had the very same thing happen with reading, and I had that moment of realizing that I used to be the kid who would like be so into a book that I would literally walk to the bus stop with my nose in a book. And I went from that, to like grad school, to being forced to read all these things, to having to develop speed reading capabilities to get through, like reading 300 pages a night of stuff. That by the time that was all done, I was just like, ugh. And then a lot for work too, where I felt like if I'm going to be reading, I have to first like keep up on all the current events, keep up on foreign affairs, and that just like took all the time. So very similar thing. I'm like, if I'm going to read, I will do that. So similar to the group fitness classes, I guess it's finding the key for yourself. So maybe this is not for everyone, but for me, it is having that like mixing my socialization and fun things with my accountability buddies, and having my book club has really re-sparked my love of reading, and has some accountability, but like in a fun way, not like college sports level accountability, where I'm like, if I'm gonna finish this book, I might as well do it by next Thursday when I have book club.
And you get to sit and talk with other ladies about something that is not kid related. It's just for you and out of interest and all those wonderful things. And
again, the night outside of the house becomes so much more precious when you have kids. I think before I had kids, I was just like, whatever. I went to happy hour like 3 nights a week, or went out to eat or something. And now I have to plan it, and it's so special that I also feel like if I'm setting aside the time for a book club, like I am going to read that book, I'm going to get my glass of wine, I'm going to just have everything for that time that I set aside.
Getting a drink in a glass that you couldn't get if a kid was sitting next to you is a really nice luxury. When your drink comes in a really silly cocktail glass and you know that you couldn't get it with a kid next to you.
It's like a very tippy cocktail glass that is just like so top heavy, and you get to drink the whole thing. Or my when I'm going on a vacation, especially without my kids or with somebody to help with the kids, and people are like, what are you most looking forward to? Like seeing this famous site, blah, 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 whatever. My answer is always drinking all of my coffee while it's still hot. Ideally with a view, but like that's just my greatest vacation indulgence, is finishing my coffee. Which, to get back on the topic of mom guilt again, because I feel like I have to be doing all this stuff in the morning. It's just so nice to have a break from that. We need that.
Yes. And it makes us better because of it.
Yeah. And I think that's the switch that you were talking about, is getting to the point where you're saying, I know that this is me. We need a new metaphor. It's so overused, the like putting on your own mask first, but it's also like putting on your own coffee first, whatever. That it is a service to everyone else, and
your partner wants you to be happy. Your kids want you to be happy and well rested.
Yeah, my partner will point that out, is like, I am somebody who wears my emotions on my sleeve. So like if I am stressed or just like not in a good place, it affects how I am to everybody. Like I'm not good at compartmentalizing, for better or worse. So I think, sometimes kindly, and sometimes he's just like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, go take a glass of wine and sit in your bathtub until you calm down, because you are miserable to be around. So it's like,
kind of like being put in timeout. It's like, you need to go upstairs, read a book, go work out. You
totally puts me in timeout. And I like resent it a little bit, especially at the time, because I'll become very childish when I'm in a bad mood. But then reflecting on it after the fact, I'm like, you could have invited me in it to the same end, but in a different manner, and that would have been great. But at the end of the day, I'm still sitting in my bathtub with my glass of wine. And one thing that kind of comes to mind, to just kind of, I think like a big picture thought about this, is I love the writer, speaker, Glennon Doyle, and I saw a video by her recently, or maybe it was something I read in her book, all blends together. But she was talking about how women so often see themselves based on their roles, and they define themselves based on their roles. And she was kind of asking the question, like, who are you outside of your roles? Because, like, those roles can come to an end. Like, women who define themselves by their role of mother, like, someday your kids won't need you anymore, and then who are you? Or we want to, we were saying in the beginning of, like, you have to be the working mom, or you have to be the mom. And if your job is what defines you, like, I'm working in an industry that's been really upended by everything that's happened recently in gestures broadly at world. And I think that's been so hard for so many of us, because it is a job that people very much define themselves by that career, because it's so all consuming. And so, like, who are you outside of that? I think having time to yourself is really necessary, because if you don't take those breaks to reevaluate and have space with yourself outside that role, you are not facing that question until you are like, I don't have this experience yet, but the moms that is like the last kid goes off to college and suddenly they're left with this like gaping void of who am I? I think like getting to kind of grapple with that question of yourself apart from roles before you're staring into the abyss of yourself without the role is a really valuable thing, again, for everyone around you.
That's helpful to think about. I feel like in the last year, like I've come out of like a 3-year cave that I was in, and I was happy in my 3-year cave, to be clear. I was becoming a mom. I was becoming a mom of young kids. I loved my kids. I loved learning how to take care of them. I was never about top of my mind was I like, oh, I'm sad, I've lost myself, anything like that. I was always doing fine and tugging along. But there's so many aspects of myself that I wasn't prioritizing that I lost during those 3 years periods, because I was just kind of trying to stay above water, learn the new role of being a mother, how that balances with the workplace. And talking with you, reading books again, all those pieces, working out regularly with a group of other awesome women and men. Shouting out to you, Mr. P, who's always in class with us. But it feels like I'm learning who I am in like my mid-30s now. It's almost like I like left starting at age 30, having my first child, and now I'm coming back. I'm like, oh, I like myself now. I'm a little bit more mature. I'm a little bit more confident, but I still do have that quirky part of me that used to do things like provide live commentary on Pornhub, which was something that I did. I still have those parts of my personality. They aren't gone. They just kind of had to be suppressed for a little bit while I balanced.
So all-consuming, like in those early years, and I think that that's something that moms who are in that stage deserve to hear, is that it's okay that is just this all-consuming period. And with my youngest being 3.5, I feel like, I'm starting to like come out of that cave, and not that it was a bad place. Like, you had to be in there because it's so all-consuming, but that you can step out and start to reevaluate. And I was talking to a friend last night who was asking about, people's choices at the dinner we were having of the spacing between their children. And you were there too, Kay. But was I kind of asking about that? And my kids are 3.5 years apart, and I know yours are less than
much
2.
Closer, like 18 months.
And so it's like you can so much see the pros and cons of both, and partly ours was due to kind of circumstances and infertility and things like that. But I also remember, because my mom told me before I had kids that she's like, just have them as close together as possible, just bam, 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 pop them out, because you will just have this period of your life where, you're in the cave, basically, was what she was saying, and just like compress that together so that you can get to the other side of being in the cave. But then when I was actually in that, I was like, oh no, this is hard, Mom. Like, I can't go back in. I just got out of the cave. I can't go back in.
I distinctly remember, like, when my firstborn was 11 months old, and it was the first time that I had gotten my period back, and I just was like, oh, then I would have to restart this, but then I would have to restart all that, knowing that eventually I am going to get pregnant again with a second. And I was like, screw it, I'm having them close together. We're going to start like trying for the second right now. I'm going to get this, because I knew that I wanted 2. I'm from a really big family. I love my really big family. But I knew that it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And so I went right into it. And I don't know, sometimes it's really, really hard. And I was definitely in a cave no
Yeah.
other parts of myself. But coming back out is awesome. So great. So,
Yeah, it is so good knowing you're on the other side. And it's so good that she asked that question, because it was so interesting hearing several people sharing their stories about it, because everybody had such a different perspective. And I think even just using us two as examples, that we ended up with very different spacing, and are both like, that worked for us. And, you know, we have kids who are different ages apart, and that's working for us. Or, you know, we were trying to say like, oh, if they're close together though, they'll be best friends when they grow up. But then it's like, I know siblings who are adults now who are very close together in age and like do not care for each other whatsoever, have like no relationship. And I know like my little sister and I are 3.5 years apart, which I read somewhere is like the worst, is same as my kids. And they're like, this is the worst age gap, because they're neither like close enough in age to have like a sense of shared everything, or far enough apart that they just kind of have their distance and have like, you know, like you were saying, you're very close with your sister who's very different in age from you. But it's like, I don't know, there's just like so many more factors. But my little sister and I are 3.5 years apart, and we are like super close, in part because we have very similar personalities and we just like get each other. So that's just totally, you have no idea when you're having kids if the next kid's gonna have same personality, clashing personality. Like, you're just rolling the dice.
Yeah, you don't know how you're going to feel during that. I mean, you might end up having a really, really hard childbirth, which happens a lot, and then it might feel totally overwhelming that you had the two close together. But then that could also happen 5 years later, and you feel like, oh wow, I finally got my body back. So no right or wrong answer. Both happy with that.
I love that. Love hearing people. Well, I realize I got us a little bit off track. Not that we're ever off track, because everything is topical, okay? But did you experience kind of having on this idea of seeing once we are regularly, we were going to ask each other, when's the last time, you know, you took time for yourself, and how does that feel? And we were discussing and realized we both are like regularly taking time for ourselves. I just came off of a nap today that I just like did nothing today because I was super tired, so I took a nap. And it was
I had a feeling that's why I had to notify you. It said like delivered quietly, and I was like, kind of getting to the point where
I was awake, but definitely needed to like have a little reminder to like nap time be over. So instead, the question is, what was that breakthrough for you or was it a breakthrough, or was it something else of getting to the point of recognizing why that you needed that time for yourself, or that to actually start taking it?
So when I started going to workout class, I felt like, wow, it's an hour, and, you know, leave 10 minutes early, get back after 10 minutes, take a shower. So really we're talking at least an hour and a half to 2 hours that I'm gone. And I do it sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays. I do it sometimes on evenings, sometimes in the morning. And a big breakthrough for me was that my partner started noticing if I went more than 2 days without working out, or if I hadn't worked out. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can tell by your mood, like, you need to get out of the house and go work out. Yes. And I think it was just a sign. It's like, that's how well this works for the household, that even though he's on his own with 2 kids who are, you know, high needs, or not perfect little behaved kids at all, he still noticed that, okay, it all works easier if you go and get your own time and then come back to us. So.
Yes, I was talking to some friends where that was very much the same thing, that they were kind of trying to talk about how to figure out stuff for their schedule. And she was like, well, I could like skip my workout. She's like very regimented about like always getting her workout in, and like we all are aware it's very tied to her mood. And it was funny because her husband was like, no, you cannot skip your workout. I cannot be around you, because she's just like found this way for her is like dealing with anxiety. It cleared up so many things. But I would say, actually, for me, I don't know that I mean, I'm sure there were some moments of insight. I don't know that it was like a breakthrough where I was like meditating on top of a mountain by myself one day and was like, I have achieved nirvana. I think it was more of like one of those hard work kind of things of, you know, like the Aristotelian habituation of like you do a thing because you know that is what you should be doing, and like you just keep doing it even though it doesn't feel normal to you until it becomes habit, and then like that habit becomes part of your character, and then you do become somebody who's just like, oh, okay, like I'm setting up my schedule for the week, like which days am I going to work out, like how am I going to fit this in, you know, they're just like working out ways to like have those habits become part of your normal, and it feels awkward at first, like anything kind of does. So I don't know that I had that breakthrough, but I think that's probably true for a lot of people.
Yeah, even reading books, it's amazing how much time was apparently going to looking at like Twitter or Reddit or other nonsense, because I find time now to read plenty of books, and my productivity is still pretty similar.
Yeah, I remind myself that because I think of like, I was like in college and I somehow was like 2 majors, playing a sport, played an instrument, like in a club, whatever, student government. And sometimes I'm like, how was I doing all? I mean, I did have more energy because I was like 20. But I think also it's just like when you find things that are working for you, like I just did all of those things because I loved them. Like none of, well, one, I did have a job too, but like it wasn't like, oh, I'm like doing this because like work is making me or because I feel like I have to for something. Like I was just doing what I liked. And then it was like there was plenty of time in the day.
Everything got done.
Things got done. And like, oh, there was somebody's thing. I wish I knew who to credit for this, but somebody was talking about how like you're juggling all these balls and they're like, you're gonna drop some of the balls. It's just that like some of them are made of glass and some of them are made of plastic. And so like, what are the balls that are made of plastic that are like, you can just, you know, the things where it's like, oh, your kids are like supposed to like dress like a traffic cone on Wednesdays to promote traffic safety. Like that is a ball you can drop. Like your kid will be fine if you do not dress them as a traffic cone on Wednesday. Like they will find something else.
Oh my gosh, that is like a glass ball for me.
That's your, or
parent of a sensitive child.
Or knowing your kid. That is true. Although my child who is like that is old enough to like take responsibility for that herself. That I'm like, all right, if you care about this school themed dress up day, then like you're in charge. You know, conceptualize your own personalized look for the occasion. But like, yeah, whatever those things are, knowing what they are, that's a good point for your kids, for yourself, for your life. And then, like, being okay, especially for us, those of us who are kind of like, oh, I'm used to, like, high performing, being the best at everything, like, keeping everything in the air. Once you have kids, I feel like that does just become impossible if you're also making time for yourself, if you're also making time for you and your partner, is just, like, becoming okay with the fact that you're going to drop some of those balls. But, like, a lot of, like, sometimes I'm just like, my house looks like shit, but, like, I'm going to, you know, read a story to my kids before bed and worry about the house later, or not, because
at some point I will put away all of my daughter's clothes.
Yeah. Exactly, at some point. So
maybe 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to start revisiting weird things that we brought up in prior episodes. Weird?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't want to be judgmental. Not weird.
Remaining questions we had from previous episodes of things that we have do not have personal experience with, or wanted to follow up more. So yeah, the revisiting segment.
So I had mentioned during a prior episode that it was a thing in one of the romance books that the guy had such a big penis that he had the girl put her hands down on her stomach so she could feel his penis through her abdominal wall, or, you know, through everything. Yeah. And we question whether that's a thing.
Yeah. I will report firsthand to having tried it with my partner, who I will say, I hope this is not hurting anybody's feelings, is not porn star sized. So I don't know if that is a requirement.
My partner's like a Goldilocks. He's right. Either the smallest or the biggest. Okay,
good. This is a good description. I like this. So I felt like this was a good context to try it. And what he had listened to that previous episode. He's one of our greatest fans and editors.
Battle it, big listeners.
Yeah, we were like, we have to follow up on this. There were some other ones that we haven't followed up on yet, like the Vignette, to report back. But, that it just seemed like it would physically be impossible based on, like, where the cervix is. That you're not, well, I mean, medical opinions accepted here, Kay, but,
I want to do a deep dive on this because so it doesn't make sense to me that you would be able to feel it, that I could feel it. What I imagine some people who are particularly, like some women who are particularly like tiny, they're particularly slim, and some, you know, Johnsons that are particularly large. They're the biggest.
Thank you for using the proper medical terminology.
I didn't want to be crass.
Never.
Yeah, not on
Never
this
be
one.
crass.
Yeah.
Not in the is my dick big enough segment, Ty Johnson.
That it felt like you should be able to theoretically feel like a big thing enter. And you have to understand that, like, especially some books are so odd. They're like, he was so big that my two hands couldn't, like my fingers couldn't touch him wrapping around. And I have a lot of, questions about their anatomy, and they're always, smaller, tinier women. So
obviously,
let's research to be continued.
yeah. I wish I had just had my annual with my gynecologist. Otherwise, I was already making jokes to her. She was asking, actually, I think we talked about previously that I didn't have the Gardasil vaccine because my mom didn't want me to be slutty, and thought that it would be irrelevant for me because her daughter would never have premarital sex, so I would be completely monogamous for all time. So when she was like, "Oh, I see that you've never gotten the Gardasil vaccine," and I was just like, "Yeah, my mom didn't want me to be slutty," but she did not get my sense of humor and just looked at me like, "What? That's not what that is." So probably would have been the wrong person to ask her about the specific implications of a guy being so big that you could feel him by pushing down. But I do just want a clear medical opinion on if that would even be possible, because to me it seems like the pubic bone is kind of
massive dildo.
Okay, so I wish that I had more to report, but I found that one to be underwhelming, and so far have found no evidence in favor. But yes, Kelly's gonna try with a huge dildo.
Maybe later on tonight. Well, thank you for listening, everybody.